Good day to all the aviapreneurs from all over the world joining us and listening to us today. This is Adnan Baranbo, and this is a new episode of AVIAPRENEURS podcast. My guests for today's episode have more than 35 years of professional experience, the majority of which is in the technology and software aspects of the aviation industry. Good morning, Uwe, and thank you for joining me today.
Good morning.
Thank you very much. So you started your career as an IT project manager for Frankfurt Airport, and then you were consulting manager for Lufthansa Systems Network. Later on, you worked in software and technology for many companies in Europe. Till in 2010, you established the revolutionary flight planning and marketplace for the aviation, for the services in the aviation industry, Rocketroute. Later, you was chairman of the computer-based flight planning software working group established by Eurocontrol between 2014 and 2019. And currently, you are the chief operating officer of AVIAPRENEURS, the company that was established by the serial entrepreneur Tony Aquila, the company which currently invests in mission critical long-term software and data businesses. I'm impressed with your career. Thank you for joining me today. I look forward to a very useful and interesting discussion.
Thank you, Adnan. Yes. Maybe one small correction. I am the chief operating officer of the aviation vertical, so I only deal with the aviation side. AFV is a much larger group, and we operate under the APG company name. So
what does AFV stand for?
Aquila Family Ventures. It's a larger investment group, which also has other areas of operation.
Very interesting. So let's start with Rocketroute. Some press called Rocketroute as the Amazon of the aviation industry. You started this company as a new cloud-based, simple to use flight planning software. And then it was transformed to be an online marketplace, a platform for the services in the aviation industry. So was this platform business model in the vision of establishing the company from day one?
No, the scope very much evolved over time. The initial idea was just focused around solving the needs, specifically here in Europe, to provide a flexible flight planning solution, because the airspace here in Europe is highly regulated and constantly changing. The expansion into other areas came much later, and that was much more driven by what our customers told us they wanted.
So you mentioned that you established Rocketroute based on the need in the European aviation market. What was this exact need? I mean, and how was Rocketroute different from the already established big flight planning systems then?
Yeah, so at the time when we started, I was working as a flight instructor and a part-time pilot for a jet owner. And in that environment, I was constantly confronted with these changing destinations and departure times. But being such a small organization, there was no backup, no dispatch department, and you'd have to flexibly respond to the changing requirements. Now, the European airspace, as you may know, is quite complex and governed by numerous regulations, which are constantly changing. There is a document called the Route Availability Document, which is regularly updated, which collects all these regulations, and Eurocontrol then enforces these into flight planning. This makes flight planning quite challenging in Europe as compared to maybe other areas, that's compared to the United States, for instance. And so these solutions that were out there in the market were quite big solutions, if you wish. They were cumbersome to use, and they were certainly not available on a mobile device. And if you remember, we started in 2010, the iPhone had just come onto the market, and mobile devices were becoming popular. And so I really needed a solution that was available on a mobile device, and there was just nothing out there. And as I mentioned, the competition were mainly based around desktop applications. So that's really where that idea came from, to build something small that you could run on a mobile device and that you could flexibly use as a pilot operator. So owners could use it themselves, or small organizations could use them without having the benefit of a full dispatch department.
Very interesting. So when you started, you targeted mainly single pilots, I mean, general aviation pilots. It was not a solution which targets the commercial aviation.
Certainly, when we started out, we really were just looking at the pilot owner operator organization, or single pilots, or flight instructors like myself at the time. Exactly.
And is this still the case, or you started targeting commercial aviation later at the progress?
No, that came all by itself. So when we started the company, I have to admit, we didn't have the vision of where it is today. It was much more targeted at that general aviation part of the industry, but quickly we found that our solution was usable by larger operators. And then as we grew, bigger and bigger organizations became our customers. They, of course, bring their own demands and requirements. So you evolve the product to meet their needs. And from there on, the product evolved more and more to serve that part of the market. And today, the business aviation sector and the larger operators are the majority of the revenue in the organization, of course.
Very interesting. This is a very nice story about how the idea the founder may have will evolve over time based on the feedback and the requirements of the user. So let's go back to the platform and marketplace business model. It's very well known that this business model is the most rewarding for the entrepreneurs and the founders of startups, and it's a very favorable business model for investors, where you have two-sided, multi-sided marketplace. However, achieving success for this business model is not easy at all, because you have two sides of the marketplace and you need to bring them on board together at the same time, which what they call the chicken or egg problem. Which one you bring first? Do you bring the operators, or do you bring the service providers? What was your experience with this business model, and how did you solve that dilemma?
Yeah. So for us, it was more natural. We started from the operator perspective, as we were discussing earlier, with the flight planning solution. And it was our customers who brought to us the need for the integration of further services in the aviation market. And we evolved from there. Of course, from a supplier's perspective, it is much more attractive to come to a platform that already has customers. So it's an interesting question about the chicken and egg. Where do you start? I would say, to the market, it is more interesting if you start from the operator perspective, because you're already bringing customers to the table. It also gives you a platform to operate from. Otherwise, you have to launch everything from the start. Having said that, you mentioned Amazon. If you, of course, bring products and solutions into a thriving big market where there is high demand, then that could be a valid starting position as well. But from our perspective, we already had the operators, and that really got the interest from the suppliers. They wanted to be close to the operators. They wanted to offer their services. And there is a demand to make that transaction seamless and simpler as well. So we just became the facilitator from there.
This is very interesting, because actually you have the operators already, because you were offering them the flight planning solutions, and then you added something else to them, which is the service part of the aviation, which makes them, I mean, the operators was there because they were receiving already a service from you. Then you added another service, which made the suppliers willing to join. This is very brilliant and very, very clever, actually. But how is the reaction now of the market? I mean, how is to this marketplace? Are operators actually acquiring and purchasing services through Rocketroute platform?
Yes, they are. There are, of course, other services and solutions. Many large operators have long-standing arrangements. So a flexible marketplace like this is more geared towards operators and pilots who need short-term solutions and may not be familiar with the destination. So that gives them a very quick access to those suppliers, and you can place the orders directly as part of your flight planning process through Rocketroute, which also makes it a seamless process. In effect, what we learned from that was that a lot of the smaller operators needed more support, and that started us providing what we call our concierge service. So we also provide a human element to the flight planning, which came, of course, later in the life of the company. And this is probably quite unique in comparison to our competitors, that Rocketroute is not just an app. You can also have the support service from our concierge organization. So they can plan for you, they can communicate with authorities, they can communicate with suppliers on the ground, which can make a life for a small organization a lot easier, certainly for a pilot owner who flies their own aircraft, where the organization of the flight is not the primary goal of the owner operator. So yeah, that has expanded us automatically into that area, and we now offer a concierge service around the marketplace to help people either serve themselves or with the help of us.
So originally, the pilot is able to the whole process of ordering services and getting the services confirmed and supplied is digital. But in case the pilot will require a human support, there is a concierge team who are there for the pilot to provide the necessary assistance or add-on services that the pilot is not willing to do by himself automatically or digitally.
Yeah, that's correct. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we launched our concierge service originally together with Cirrus here in Europe for new owners of that aircraft, and it evolved from there. So we now offer that to all our customers who need the extra help globally, to dispatch flights, to plan even transport and hotel stays. So we can do end-to-end service, including the flight planning and briefing.
Very interesting. I'm going to go from Rocketroute. I'm going to move to your own career in starting up Rocketroute itself. So you didn't start Rocketroute by yourself. You had co-founders with you. Having co-founders is double-edged sword. They provide a lot of benefit when you start, because starting a business is a hard task. It's a lonely task. So having co-founders on your side make the journey easier. At the same time, make the business more favorable for investors, because having co-founders mean that it's not just a one-man show business. It has more sustainability and stability. At the same time, having co-founders means you have to relinquish part of the business. So how was your experience working with co-founders?
Yeah, my experience was very positive. Starting up a company is a very testing time, as you will appreciate, and having partners and colleagues around can really help you get through that period. That also helps you get fresh ideas and help validate your own ideas. If you're just doing everything by yourself, there's a big risk that you miss issues or go into a wrong direction, and partners will help you with that. But it's quite right, as you say, that does mean you have to share the equity in the company, and that is something you need to consider. So ultimately, the decision really comes down to your individual circumstances. Funding is a critical part in that. If you have sufficient funds from the outset, you can, of course, go and hire the necessary help and expertise. But if you don't know where the idea is going, or you're just starting with a very small company, having friends and colleagues around is very helpful. So for me, it's been a positive experience, but it really comes down to your own circumstances and what your ultimate goals are.
So what do you consider a good co-founder? What's the profile of a good co-founder? I mean, what are the requirements to look at when deciding to have a co-founder? Because you might have a great business idea, a great business model, and favorable market circumstances and opportunity, but having a co-founder who's your partner, if it's not a great fit, it might destroy the whole business. So what to look for when having a co-founder?
That's a very good question, actually. I would say complementing expertise is very important, so you don't step on each other's toes too much. I was very lucky in a way. I was already working with two friends and colleagues in another company when the Rocketroute idea came up, and we started the company together from there. So we already had a working relationship. If you're, of course, starting completely afresh and you don't have partners, I would say ideally you want partners that have complementing expertise. So if you are more in the technical side, you may want to have a partner that is more in the business development side. Potentially, if you're the aviation expert in the team, then you'd want your partner to be more experienced in raising funding, for instance, so that you can each focus on your areas and complement each other with your skills. So yeah, look for complementing skill set. I would say that's very important. And as you say, there has to be a good interpersonal relationship as well. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And it is very stressful starting a company, I can tell you.
Absolutely.
So
but you have done a great job at that. You have done a great job
works.
at that, and you already established a company that's very useful and essential for the general aviation industry in Europe and the world now. We compliment you for that.
Thank you.
So having talked about the co-founders, and you just mentioned about raising funds, what's your experience with raising funds for Rocketroute? Because aviation businesses are not an easy to fund businesses. Investment providers are not very experienced with the aviation industry, like in other areas of the economy. So it's not an easy industry to raise funds for. What's your experience with that?
Yeah, I would confirm that. It certainly wasn't easy for us to raise funding. But of course, when we raised funds, it was also 10 years ago. So the industry has moved forward quite a lot. There are many more investment firms around. We've just come out of a period with low interest rates, which of course provided the capital market with a lot more liquidity. So nowadays it's much easier to find funding if you have a good business idea, which wasn't so much the case over 10 years ago. Also, we didn't necessarily have the right contacts when we started. So that was something we had to learn as well, where to go, who to ask. Additionally, I would say Europe is also a lot more challenging to raise capital funding compared, for instance, to the United States. That's certainly something we've learned. And as you can see from where Rocketroute is today, part of the AFE family, and that is an American investment group, we just don't have that vibrant capital investment market here in Europe. So yeah, take from that what you will, whether it's easier to start in America or seek American investors, that is ultimately up to you. But it was certainly not easy for us.
So AVIAPRENEURS was the initial investor 10 years ago, or someone else invested in Rocketroute?
No, originally when we started out, we had smaller angel investors here in Europe, locally based, who helped us get out of the starting blocks. We then had other investors coming in, buying the earlier investors out, becoming partners. And this culminated into the period where we received a very large investment from RBP, who helped us really launch the marketplace at the time. And yeah, from that we became part in another group, which then was from where we were then bought out by AFE Partners, and now we're part of that investment group. So we've gone through numerous rounds of investments and gone through various partners, but this is certainly the biggest partnership we have to date with AFE. And it also brings together a whole new series of capabilities. Being part of the AFE family, we now have APG with its aircraft performance products, which is coming together with the Rocketroute product into a new product, which we're launching this year. So that gives us capabilities we've just never had before. So that's been a really good experience for us, for sure.
It's a very interesting experience. And especially I noted that having a startup and growing a startup is not something easy, because throughout the process, you had so many partners. and you have to be flexible to deal with all of them and different characters, different demands, and different requirements. So it's really something that everyone should take into consideration when deciding to go ahead and be an entrepreneur and establish a business. That is not going to be a solo journey. There will be so many people involved, so many partners.
That's true. Yes. Yeah. You tend to go through numerous rounds and have new partners come on board as well.
Thank you, Uwe.
That's very, very right.
Yeah. I normally end each episode of AVIAPRENEURS podcast asking my guests to share with us their recommendations and their advice. The advice they wish they knew themselves when they started about how to start and how to run and grow a successful aviation business. So I'm sure the audience is willing to hear some points from your side on what they should do to start and grow a successful aviation business. What do you tell them?
Believe in your ideas. I think the most important element is tenacity. If you have a good idea, if you believe in your idea, stick with it. You will go through very, very difficult times. You will at times just want to give up, do something else. But you must believe in your idea. Otherwise, you will not come to success. So tenacity is the most important part of that. Keep working hard. Stay open to new ideas. As we mentioned earlier, be open to new partnerships and stick with your ideas and work through it. You'll be successful. The most part of it is the hard work and the challenging periods coming through those. That's really the only advice I can give.
It's very valuable advice, and you made it in a way that if you believe in the idea, if you're open to new ideas, and if you put hard work and you have the tenacity, you will ultimately be successful. This is very valuable advice. Thank you, Uwe. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the experience and the knowledge shared with us all. I look forward to meeting you soon in person.
Yeah, thank you, Adnan, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all the aviapreneurs who joined us today. I'm sure you found a lot of experience and valuable insights today. I look forward to seeing you again next week with another episode and another aviapreneur. Have a great day.